I've worked with the homeless for almost 30 years now, and the mustard seed is an example of what happens when a community comes together and with the Christian background really determines that there's a need, and we have a responsibility as members of this community to be part of the solution and change and the difference that can be made. Two years ago, my aunt gave my husband and I tickets to go and see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra at the Saddle Dome. And my aunt's somebody who thinks that if I had stopped helping the homeless, then about 28 years ago they would have all gotten up and helped themselves. So she really doesn't have an understanding of what homelessness is. So on a cold November night, we headed to the Saddle Dome, the three of us, to go and see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra play. And they travel around at Christmas time and tell the stories of Christmas, various stories, playing really amazing traditional Christmas music. They've got an orchestra, a light show, and it's really quite phenomenal. And as we parked, we were heading into the Saddle Dome, and there was a man standing off to the side of the Saddle Dome, and he had a long coat on and boots with no laces, and his coat wasn't done up, and his hair and beard were just a great big knotted mass of gray on his head, and he had a little coffee in his hand, and he was pretty shaky and had a bunch of bags at his feet. So I went over and asked him how his evening was going, and he said it was fine. If my aunt wasn't with us, I probably would have offered him my ticket, but because she was there, I didn't, because she would have jumped me and beat me up. Anyways, we went into the Saddle Dome, so we got into our seats and we're sitting there waiting for the show to begin, and all of a sudden it just got so quiet, and my aunt leaned over and said, "How did he get in here?" And here was this homeless man with all his bags wandering on the floor level in the really expensive seats, and he sat down in one of the chairs. After a few minutes, the fellow who owned that chair came over, and the man got up, gathered his bags, apologized, and moved to another chair. So I saw this happen about 3 different times, and then the lights dimmed and the show began, and I kind of forgot about him. And it was a 3-hour show. We were about an hour and a half into the show, and the orchestra was playing the most beautiful traditional Christmas music, and there was a narrator on the stage narrating a story about how an angel had come to earth. God had sent him there to find out, what does Christmas mean 2,000 years after the first Christmas? And so the entire show was based on the angel's journey around the earth and interpreting what does Christmas mean now. And as this show's going on, the choir's singing and the orchestra's playing, and it's just this stunning show, and the narrator's telling this story. And all of a sudden, it just stopped. The choir stopped, the narrator stopped, and they looked over, and this homeless man with all of his bags was walking up onto the stage. And he set the bags down, walked across the stage, and grabbed the microphone from the narrator. And he started singing in the most beautiful bass voice I've ever heard about how at Christmas time we're different. We're more forgiving, and we're kind of willing to look below the surface of what we see when we see people, and we're less judgmental. And underneath the coat, he had on the tuxedo of the orchestra, and he was actually part of the show. And it was really profound to have this man actually tell us and show us what the entire show was about. And the next morning my aunt called me crying and said, "Now I understand what you do." But that was just a real example to me of how we can look and see what we think is the story, or we can really be curious about what is the story underneath the clothes, because that's where the truth lies.